Hello, everyone. It's great to talk to you again today. We're going to talk about the second game in this two-game road trip and 3 out of 4 in the last 2 weeks for the Purdue Boilermakers. Seems like they've been on the road forever. After the disaster last 4 minutes at Northwestern earlier this week and basically last week to Indiana, I'm sure there were plenty of questions for the fans to think about. I know I said many times that Purdue was going to not go winless in the Big Ten season. We all kind of said that early on and would probably lose some games, especially on the road. But then things went so well, people started to think it may not happen, that they would win them all. That has happened, though. They've lost. But first up, can they rebound after a tough loss earlier this week? And will the refs continue to swallow their whistles, allowing other teams to pretty much bully and push around Purdue with any kind of fallout around them at all? Now, Purdue controlled the game at Northwestern for like 36 minutes and then threw it literally into the stands in the last 4 minutes. And when you're getting beaten by your opponent's best game every single night, you got to watch out for what's coming, right? You're getting their best game each night and watch out for those small spurts. Now, can Purdue stop Jahmir Young, or who's averaging 18 points a game this season? It's hard to say. Maryland is a senior-leading team. Yes, and we saw that happen against Northwestern when they had 2 seniors in the backcourt. They pretty much bullied around everybody else. Now, the game against the Terps last time was right down to the wire, and that was at Mackey Arena. So you can guess there will be a raucous crowd pumping in their house. A loss could send the Boilermakers into the second tier of potential Final Four hopefuls. Let's get right into it. These are my notes as I watched the game, which I happened to watch Friday morning because I was sick Thursday night and most of Friday. It's Saturday morning now. Not every play-by-play, of course, is in the game, but just the trends of what was going on during the game. I got to admit, the first 2 or 3 minutes of the game, Purdue looked kind of lethargic. They had 2 turnovers right away, and Maryland looked aggressive, already hooking and holding Zach Edey early on and pushing and shoving other people. So the energy is with Maryland, as you would expect at home to start this one. You would really kind of feel it was going to be that way. But at the 16-minute mark, Purdue is up 6-2, and Maryland is only 1 for 7 from the field. So despite all those problems, Purdue's up. At the first time out, it's 8-6, and that's at 13:35. And Purdue has already 4 turnovers, though. And it appears guys, again, do not want to take open shots when they're getting them. There's a lot to be said about making the extra pass, but sometimes you just got to chuck it up there, right, when you're wide open. As usual, there are no fouls called at this point. Now, after the timeout, the refs start blowing the whistle. Only on Purdue, though. It's now 4 fouls to none. There's a break with 11-12 left in the first half, and Purdue's still up 10-9. Both teams started off 0 from three-point land, and Maryland makes a 3 to tie the game up at 18-18 with 5 minutes and 45 seconds left in the half. Did I mention Maryland hasn't committed a foul yet at 5:45 left in the half? All right, Braden Smitty comes out and picks the pocket down underneath the basket on an inbound pass for a quick deuce. He was really thinking there. He caught everybody off guard. Oh, and there it is. Maryland's first foul at 4 minutes and 40 seconds left in the first half. Are you kidding me? Come on now. Man, glad we got that over with, though, so quickly, right? I know how Purdue fans can get frustrated with all these refs calling these games like they are. They finally called 2 fouls against guys guarding Zach Edey, but just as he catches the ball, of course, and it was late in the half, ignoring all of the other fouls while he's shooting, of course. And then to make up for it, they called 2 fouls on Zach Edey within 30 seconds on Zach in under 1 minute left in the half. So now he's got 2 and the entire Maryland team's only got 4. Maryland's the clear aggressor here on defense, but has only been called for those 4 fouls. The game up to this point has been played kind of haphazardly between the teams, but each team only has 5 turnovers. Only 1 three-pointer has been made, and that was made by the Terps. Purdue has picked and chosen its shots, and they are shooting over 50% because of that, though. And both teams don't do much late, and going into the half, it's Purdue up 28-25. Now, they're led by Braden Smitty. He's got 10 points on 5 of 5 shooting, so he's shooting great. Halftime stats look like this. Purdue shooting 48.1 and is 0 for 5 from three-pointers. Maryland's shooting 30.8, and they're a whopping 1 for 6 on three-pointers, so not much from three-point land from either team. Jahmir Young leads the Terps with 9 points. All right, the second half starts with 2 made shots by Smitty. One a deuce, and of course the other one was a 3. Purdue right away, there you go. Purdue is up 33-27 before you know it. The Terps call a timeout with 16:11 left in the second half, and Purdue's now up 37-29. They got an 8-point lead. Zach Edey has scored the last 4 points. I got to hand it to Maryland fans for not knowing what's going on, though. Smitty starts off 7 for 7, gets tapped on the elbow for an air ball, which they didn't call a foul, of course, and they start calling him an air ball. Funny as it may be, they didn't pay attention to what happened before that, of course. After the timeout, though, Maryland comes down and hits one of those short mid-range jumpers, 8 to 15 feet, give or take. I've said it's Purdue's Achilles heel this season. They made one of those, of course. And okay, so Mason Gillis hooks this guy on the fall when he gets upset and gets a tech against him and kind of swung his fist at him. Maryland makes the other 2 points to make a 4-point play, and before you know it, it's down to a 4-point game again. Purdue is now pummeled by Maryland, and there's no calls at all yet. Mason got one of those kind of calls. Ticky-tacky. When you go back and looked at the replay, it looked like the guy's hand hit himself in the forehead and he kind of flopped. That wasn't the problem. It was the swing of the fist afterwards towards the referee that got the tech. On the other end, though, after the 4-point play and after the tech, Purdue was pretty much pummeled from then on out the rest of the game, and there's no calls at all. This ultimately leads quickly to a Maryland 10-0 run. Thank you, referees, for that, because a lot of it was no calls and helped out Maryland. In 2 minutes, the referees took over the entire game, basically. When you don't call fouls against one team and that allows the other team to pretty much run roughshod over you, you're not doing the game of basketball any justice at all, and either team, really. Now, G-Man started this, though, by losing his cool in the first place, of course. I think Matt Painter called a timeout maybe 2 possessions too late in that one, maybe 1. Maybe could have stopped it a little quicker. But Purdue answers pretty quickly with a 3-pointer from Brandon Newman. Nice to see him doing a little bit of scoring. Maryland answers with 2 of their own, and then Smitty takes the inbound pass, is fouled roughly, I figured 3 times coming down the court. 1 or 2 of them were pretty rough. And finally, just this little touch foul is called on him at the top of the key. At least there was the first foul called, and it only took 8 minutes this time to get their first foul called. How about that? There is no such thing as a body foul in this game. Just run right through the guy. The Terps are now 9 of 13 in the second half and have made 6 shots in a row and are on a 15-3 run since the technical. All right, say it isn't so. Purdue is now finally going to the line for 2 free throws. Only this second Maryland foul of the half, and they are up now 45-40. So you see how things have switched pretty quickly. Purdue only makes 1 of the free throws, of course. Maryland makes a 2, and they followed that up by a 3 after a bogus non-call on a foul on Zach Edey on an offensive rebound. How many of those have there been this year? And the referee during the play slows down to explain it to Coach Painter why the play continues to go on, and he tells you why it isn't a foul. I'll say it for everybody. It's called hooking. And now Maryland is on a 21-4 run, and the #1 team in the country, or was #1, cannot get a foul called for it, as somehow Maryland never touches a player anywhere. It is apparent the Big Ten has told their referees to give everybody else a chance to beat Purdue by swallowing their whistles. At least that's what I thought. Probably because they're afraid it will look like maybe a free throw fest, and they really don't want that, or they want to give teams a chance. They don't call that many fouls at all now for Purdue. Score is 50-41. Still a chance, maybe, but there's 9 minutes and 6 seconds left in the half, or at least the second half. One of the questions of the game, though, is could Purdue stop a 4 to 6 minute spurt where they played poorly? And this was that spot, and I had to think about that. It was a really bad spot through that stretch. They were up by 8 and are now down by 9 in just a 6-minute span. Okay, so Dan Martinez from Maryland drives down the lane. Everyone spins away from him by the fouls called on, I believe, G-Man. That's who they called it on. No, we're not in the tank for everybody, but after a 3-point play, Purdue is now down 53-41, and it sure didn't look like any foul anywhere there. I'll be stunned if they call more than 2 more fouls on Maryland in this game. And after a loose ball steal for Maryland, they score again, now on a 26-4 run, up 55-41, and they're shooting 70% in the second half, hitting 11 of their last 13 shots. Purdue had a lead at 40-39, so you do the math. It's a 9-1 run since then. Since that technical one, Purdue was up 8 points. Maryland scored 27 points on 11 for 14 shooting. Meanwhile, Purdue is 1 for 10. I'm losing track of all the stats now, but Maryland just ran 2 threes in a row on their last 2 possessions and are up 61-43. Game, set, match, you would think, at least at this point. Refs do as refs do, finally. Calling a foul so Zach Edey gets to shoot some free throws. Only 5 minutes left in the game. But the pièce de la résistance on the cake for Maryland with 2 seconds left on the shot clock. They bank in a three-pointer. How many times have you seen that this year? The final 68-54. Purdue has now lost its last 3 road games. In all 3 losses, the other teams were allowed to pretty much bully Purdue around in the way, shape, or form that they wanted to, and the referees swallowed their whistles. There were only 13 fouls called in the entire second half of this game. Several of the fouls looked to be kind of after the outcome of the game was over and was already settled. You know, the makeup one. And they got 6 of their 10 free throws very late in the game, too. That is an utter joke. It was just crazy how many times Purdue was fouled and nothing was called. Here's some of your Twitter fodder. I'm sick of this conference, which Purdue will still win. You wonder why no one can attract 5 stars and haven't had national champion in 20 years? You're rewarding absolute garbage. That was from Twitter. Here's another one. Purdue has given the Big Ten one of the best teams in the country, the best player in the country, and a legit threat to make a Final Four. And the conference rewards them by treating or reffing them atrociously. It's embarrassing at the Big Ten, it said. I have to question the haters out there. When their team was allowed to beat and bash their opponents to death, they're always saying you complain about the refs. Maybe not necessarily tonight, although the refs were not good, but in the past for sure. And also, non-serious people proclaim that Purdue loses in the tournament the first weekend. You're lost if you think that. Now, here's what I have from me. These are my opinions. No panics needed here, which is what I hear from a lot of people out there at times here in the last couple days. Maryland probably wins this game, even if it is a good officiated game, based on the fact that they shot lights out in the second half and how the Boilermakers were in the tank shooting in the second half. But Purdue was up by 8 and probably should have been up by 16 if the fouls are called correctly. And that makes the game totally different. You never know what happens. But Zach Edey only shot 2 free throws in this game. That is craziness right there. Unless you're a true blue, diehard Maryland Terps fan, you know that that is not what should have happened in this game after you watched it. But game after game, it continues to happen, and it will as long as it's allowed to. Maybe the Northwestern game against Purdue, they could have won because the referees were so bad. This one, maybe not. And yes, there are tons of videos showing blatant fouls not getting called, and conspiracy theorists say there had to be a point somewhere during the season that the Big Ten couldn't allow Purdue to run away from everybody else pretty much. I guess there's a little bit of fodder with that. But you cannot win them all. Remember, they will lose at least another, and it's the last 6 that matters the most. All right, so it's a game that got away. Looks like they could have won it. Yes, the refs didn't ref great, but they still did a lot of bad things to lose this game. The only one you can really complain about was the Northwestern game, where it pretty much was taken from them by a lot of the nastiness that was going on there. Other than that, Purdue never adjusted in the other 2 losses they've had in the last couple weeks. All right, so I think they're going to rebound pretty easily. They got 3 home games left out of the last 4. Looks like when you're at home, you're going to play a lot better. That will be a mainstay for the next 2 weeks before we start to get towards the tournament in 3 to 4 weeks. Ohio State's up on Sunday. Hopefully we'll have a better outcome come Monday morning.